Screech! Following Daidara's soft shout, the two flying birds attacked one after another, exploding more than a meter in front of Naruto. The explosion of fire completely covered a radius of 4 to 5 meters. If an ordinary person encountered this kind of attack, they would have no way to dodge it and would die under the impact of the explosion. Even Naruto, who chose this extremely fast body technique form, still had no way to rely on physical strength to avoid this bird-like attack from front to back. But don't forget, Naruto can use Hiraishin. The thought stirred in the middle. The Flying Thunder God technique was activated. Wow! Chasing after the explosive fire wave hit his body, Naruto disappeared from sight. Disappeared? Where? Daidara's face was shocked. His view from the sky was wide open. He also saw Naruto activate Hiraishin and escape. Maybe his eyes quickly glanced around the street below, but he didn't see Naruto's figure. Except for the ruins of the brick slabs, Kakuzu and Sasori, two people, through the brick slabs inside, escaped. Naruto seemed to have disappeared like that, completely out of sight. Maybe run away to another place? Deidara, it's you below. Watch out, Kakuzu shouted. Just as Sasori and Kakuzu rushed out from the ruins, they saw movement in the sky at a glance. At this time, Naruto's 2 feet soles appeared, fragile chakra, clinging to Daidara's cat head eagle belly. And that white owl on its belly, straight stuck, especially made Hiraishin kunai. Many half-blade sides were deeply stuck in the ground. At Naruto's left-right palm in the middle, chakra air currents quickly circled around. 2 rotating chakra light spheres on Naruto's left and right palms were rapidly condensing to completion. What? Daidara's face was filled with horror. He lowered his head and looked down at his feet. He was originally extremely knowledgeable in battle strategies, his brain was unusually active, and he naturally understood that the so-called down below in Kakuzu's mouth was referring to the clay owl's belly. When will the time come? Daidara's thoughts raced. In his mind appeared a huge wave of Naruto's shadow clone, throwing kunai and shuriken into the air. He just controlled the owl to dodge left and right, trying his best to avoid the explosive talisman bombardment mixed in. But for shuriken that didn't have too much threat, there wasn't too much effort wasted dodging. Thinking about it, Naruto quietly took out his specially made kunai and hit him in the stomach. Bastard. The brain thought about it, but Daidara's counterattack speed, which was originally at its peak, did not stop at all. A stick of clay from the ring tool in the bag grabbed a handful of white clay, stuffed it into the mouth, and quickly swallowed. At the same time, he also gave up the control of the cat. His knees bent slightly, and he jumped up. Rasen is complete. Deidara practically jumped up in an instant. The owl with its belly standing there. Naruto also completed condensing Rasengan. Both palms swung out together, straight towards the owl's middle part, smashing like crazy. Boom, boom. Immediately, the Rasengan exploded with a ball of light from below, splitting the owl in two. But Naruto also borrowed the force of the charge, but the momentum still did not decrease. The distance between Deidara and Naruto was only less than half a meter. Seeing the Rasengan, immediately wanted to hit him. Deidara suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a black sphere. The ball was like an inflatable balloon, rapidly expanding in size. In less than half a second, it had already reached a diameter of 1 meter, separating Naruto and Deidara on both sides. The Rasengan's aftershocks smashed like crazy on the other sphere above, encountering an extremely large resistance. Although it tore the sphere open, after Naruto's body rushed into the sphere, the Rasengan's aftershocks also faded away. This is Naruto's face was slightly frightened. Under the eyes, I was in a black ball, surrounded by darkness. Can see objects? Also only this in the darkness, everywhere, floating white light particles. Among them, there were quite a few bright spots that, following Naruto's breathing, flowed into Naruto's body. There is also a part that looks like it has eyes growing out, entering Naruto's body through his pores. Naruto knew this was Deidara exploding clay. And those white light spots were nano-sized grenades created by Deidara. They penetrated Naruto's body without any holes, just to be able to blow Naruto into pieces. Without this pair of Sharingan, Naruto would not have been able to see the existence of these nano-grenades. At this moment, Deidara was still blowing air into the black ball, and the ball's volume was also rapidly expanding. In less than a moment, the ball had reached about 3 to 4 meters in length, growing arms, legs, and a head, its shape exactly the same as Deidara's original. This time you really have no way to escape. Deidara smiled confidently, bite off the last bit of air in his mouth, look up at the Earth-sealing body clone balloon in front of him, and express his extreme satisfaction with his own work of art. Screech! Goodbye! Deidara's body was still falling straight down, but he didn't care about anything else at the moment. He had to quickly detonate the Seal Earth clone grenade, because he had no way of determining whether Naruto would have any other moves and suddenly escape from inside the grenade. Even though the leader clearly stated, Jinchuriki must be captured alive. But the strength of this Nine-Tails Jinchuriki before his eyes was so strong that it was a bit too abnormal. Facing them, the 4 Akatsuki members joined forces to attack, but were still able to take on one enemy mini without falling into a disadvantage. If he doesn't embrace the determination to kill the opponent, this Jinchuriki capture plan will have no chance of being completed. According to Deidara, shouted loudly. In the air, the Deidara earth-sealing clone, like a fart, released a whoosh sound, starting from the head part, bit by bit, turned into powder and dissipated. But this is not a dud grenade. But this ninjutsu of his, the first thing he released was a small particle-shaped nano-grenade. The explosion will not see the light of fire, but can tear any living thing into pieces. Sure enough, when that airship version of Deidara's earth-sealing clone exploded halfway, a blonde-haired teenager wearing orange sportswear fell out from within, falling straight down. During the landing, the blonde youth's body suddenly started to turn into powder, scattering little by little in the air. When he fell to the top of the building, only the lower half of his body remained, the upper half of his body had disappeared. Thump! The heavy object fell on the roof with a loud sound. Deidara followed closely behind and fell down, his back hitting the ground like crazy, emitting a heavy bang. It hurts! Deidara was on the side falling down. The whole day the arm bone was pressed to a slightly deformed place. A trace of fresh blood hung from the corner of his mouth, seemingly suffering from serious internal injuries. Hey, Deidara, didn't you say the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki wanted to capture him alive? How did you kill him? Sasori's voice echoed from below the building, carrying a hint of displeasure in his voice. Hateful! How did I know that guy only had that much ability? And yet he died so easily under the arts. Deidara angrily replied. Sasori and Kakuzu, both of them, were still standing on the ruins, their faces not looking very good. The leader gave the order. Jinchuriki must be captured alive. The two glanced at each other, hurriedly stepped on the wall of the great building, and jumped up towards the top floor. Oh, it hurts! Deidara now got up. He tried to suppress the intense pain and pulled his deformed, fractured arm straight away. 2 black shadows appeared and jumped up to the top floor. When Sasori and Kakuzu looked anxiously towards Naruto's corpse, the Jonin's face couldn't help but show a trace of fear. In the great castle beside the location, only half of Naruto's body remained, having long since turned into a block of wood. Although the wood's appearance is still the same as Naruto's, it is obviously just a wood release clone. Sure enough, I knew that guy wasn't that simple. Deidara, you really don't have any abilities. Sasori's tone was already predictable. Deidara had a slight feeling that something was wrong. Turned his head to take a look, discovered half of the wood release behind. Immediately his face also showed embarrassment. When is the end? Could it be that the person who just quietly hid in the owl's belly and launched a sneak attack on him was just Naruto's wood release clone? Although I don't know much about wood release. But shadow clones can all use ninjutsu, so wood release is naturally insignificant. Looks like this time the loss of face was really too big, being made so miserable by a clone. However, in front of Sasori, Deidara would never admit defeat. Just because the two people have different artistic concepts, Elder Hat denies his art. Even if he lost face again, Deidara would not admit it. Damn it, I just made a mistake in judgment. If it weren't for you two getting in the way, I would have already helped take down the Nine-Tailed Man. As for the annoying words from Deidara's mouth, Kakuzu and Sasori directly chose to ignore it, because both of them knew this guy was just farting to save face. So tell me, where's the real Nine-Tails Jinchuriki? Did he use the Flying Thunder God release technique? Kakuzu turned his head and glanced around, as if searching for something. Speaking of hiding, that guy was captured by the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Could he really be tortured to death? Kakuzu's words still showed some concern for Haiden's safety. After all, two people have worked together for a period of time, so there are more or less feelings. Although Haiden's mind was not very clear, and the general loved to whisper in his ear nonstop, it was very unpleasant. But Haiden was the only one who could not kill his comrade, which was considered a bit to Kakuzu's taste. Poof! Kakuzu had just finished speaking halfway, when he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. Hey! Kakuzu cried out in pain, his gaze moving downwards. A green-bladed long knife appeared, piercing through the roof and floor, obliquely piercing his chest. This thing, without even thinking, was made by Naruto, who had just released that skeleton monster. Because the green energy surrounding that long blade was exactly the same as the green energy that was just released from the skeleton's body. After the six-bladed long sword pierced through Kakuzu's body, the attack did not stop. The long sword moved slightly, the blade aimed at Sasori and Deidara's direction, once again slashing towards the two of them. Crack, crack. In an instant, the green-colored long saber was like a huge cutting blade, tearing a long crack through the roof and floor. This guy, he's really as strong as a monster. Deidara cursed darkly, hurriedly let go, and jumped backwards, passing to the roof of a tall building. Sasori secretly squeezed Kakuzu's cold sweat, afraid that Kakuzu would just hang like that. It's not like he's this cold-blooded person, how worried about his teammates' safety. But originally there were 4 of them, now there are 2 less. Dealing with Uzumaki Naruto is even more difficult. Moreover, in Akatsuki, Sasori's understanding of Naruto's strength is the clearest. Naruto seems to be able to understand enemy information. For example, earlier in the cave of Hachi country, Naruto knew clearly about his puppet's weakness. Like just now, Deidara, in the air, released the Seal Earth Clone Grenade. Naruto over there was confident that he could successfully sneak attack, but he didn't have his main body move forward, but instead let the wood release clone go past. In short, Sasori always thought that Naruto had a strange quality to him, as if he could always see the future. And the mind thoughts flowed at the same time. The scorpion's leg-down movement could not stop. With Deidara like that, he quickly retreated towards the back, already reaching the roof of another high-rise building. Boom, boom, tilde, tilde, tilde. At the same time as the 2 people escaped, the green-bladed long sword was almost a meter away from their bodies, chasing after them. A knife to cut the roof and floor of a high-rise building in half. Because the intensity of that slash was extremely great, Kakuzu was immediately pierced by the tip of the blade and was also suddenly thrown out. A loud bang. Kakuzu's body slammed into the wall of a tall building, creating a spiderweb-like crack on the wall before falling straight down. And that high-rise building that was chopped off by a knife, hit by this kind of scale of destruction, also followed a bit of rumbling, collapsed towards both sides. Immediately, the third form of Susanoo, standing in the body for a long time, appeared in the crowd's sight. About 10 meters tall giant, same as the previous skeleton's different form. This time it has grown muscles and a face, wearing a suit of armor. In both hands were holding a long sword about 4 to 5 meters long. One look, and you could tell this big guy was difficult to deal with. What the hell is this monster? Deidara stood on the rooftop of the suburbs with a dazed expression, looking at the giant Susanoo that was almost on par with the entire skyscraper. A feeling of admiration and jealousy arose in his heart. That's right, for Deidara, this kind of crazy guy. In his heart, there was basically no possibility of fear existing. All he had was admiration. Admiration that Naruto could have such a terrifying method. Compared to that giant whose whole body was filled with fierce aura and green light, his art instantly seemed to lose its fragrance. Please, that giant looks very handsome, okay? What? People's art is so cool and fierce. Why is your own art just playing with mud? Although explosive clay-made grenades can create extremely large-scale destruction. Although instant explosion is indeed a perfect art, but no matter how you say it, this is still playing with mud. Deidara fell into self-denial. However, this human feeling was very short. But after a moment of silence, Deidara's face revealed a confident smile. What am I see for? My CEO is also very perfect. Good A. It is indeed the world's most perfect art. Deidara, why are you standing there in a daze? Don't you want to live anymore? Sasori and Deidara stood on the roof of a tall building. At this moment, Naruto split the building in 2. And using Susanoo's power, he swung a pair of long swords and once again slashed towards the 2 of them. Sasori naturally brought his third Kazekage puppet, quickly dodging and jumping to the back to retreat. Perhaps Sasori saw Deidara completely unaware of the danger, so he loudly shouted a reminder. Disgusting. Deidara reacted half a beat slow. Following his thoughts, he pulled out looking at the green long sword above his head, slashing straight down towards his forehead. Deidara's face was filled with fear. Secretly cursed, quickly gave way to the side, and moved aside. Boom boom tilde tilde tilde. The six-bladed long sword wiped Deidara's clothes and cut open a large crack next to the building. Immediately, the building leaning against the outside area also began to collapse. The cement stone crumbled each block, falling down and going. Deidara luckily dodged a distance, stepping on the falling cement stones in the air, continuously dodging and jumping, hiding inside the tall building. Dreaming of escaping, Naruto shouted loudly, standing at the center of Susanu's skeletal frame. According to the slightly vibrating pupils in the middle, the controlled Susanu can move forward a few steps. Once again, brandishing a pair of green long swords in his hands, he chased after Deidara, swinging them tightly. Crackle, crackle. The sturdy wall of that tall building, under the green-headed long sword's fierce swing, could not withstand a single blow. Every time the knife goes down, a giant crack will appear on the stairs. Like cutting melons and vegetables, without much effort, a really sturdy high-rise building was completely turned upside down and chopped down by Naruto. Disgusting. This bastard really doesn't intend to give me a chance to breathe? Deidara hid inside the mansion, panting nonstop, his legs quickly running out of the afterimage. He was breathing heavily, his head covered in sweat. Originally thought to hide inside the castle, can prevent Susanoo can see. In this way, he could take advantage of this opportunity to escape from another building. Maybe Naruto didn't show his cards at all, completely ignoring where he was hiding. On the contrary, it was a violent swing that directly brought down the building. Deidara came several times, almost losing his life under the green blade of the long sword. But luckily, the building had completely collapsed before that. He followed the other side to break the window out. As he waved his hand, a miniature clay bird was thrown out and fell down. Favor. Deidara formed the earth release seal. The miniature bird exploded a cloud of mist, transforming into a large clay bird more than a meter long, firmly catching Deidara. This time, Deidara finally felt a little more at ease. Looking at the person chasing him from behind, he slashed down with a six-bladed long sword. Deidara controlled the clay bird to fly, dodging left and right, and was already able to pull a large distance away from the giant Susanoo. The bird flew straight up, flapping its wings, carrying Deidara into the air, reaching a point where it was impossible to attack. He hugged his arms, lowered his head, and looked down, smiling. How is it? That thing, although its body is huge, somehow it looks a bit bulky. When his eyes met Naruto's, the smile on the corner of his mouth suddenly stiffened, his complacency disappeared, and his face instantly turned angry and dissatisfied. Bastard, what the hell is that look on that guy's face? Through the left eye's long-range electronic eye focusing adjustment, Deidara finally saw Naruto's eyes clearly. That pair of eyes, the same as Itachi Uchiha's eyes, through Kurenai's pupils, was a pair of Sharingan. Once, he was defeated by Itachi. At that time, Itachi's eyes were also like this, carrying indifference and contempt. It's like mocking his art, it's not worth a penny. Sharingan again? The more Deidara thought about it, the angrier he got. He couldn't help but want to activate C4, forcing the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki to look straight at his existence. Behind the battlefield, a few dozen meters away, a tall building. The bald head leading the 10 ninja team, at this moment still maintained the previous squatting posture, only revealing one head outside the terrace, observing this Kage-level expert battle. They occasionally swallowed their saliva, even though their legs were shaking slightly while squatting, and the chrysanthemum pose appeared convenient, but no one could move. Team leader, should we go ahead and observe this battle? I feel like our distance is still too close. We might be affected by it. Kung Luong wiped a cold sweat on his forehead, his voice trembling. The bald captain nodded. What you said makes sense. Retreat 300 meters later and gather on the tallest building over there. The bald head waved his hand, and the first one to dodge and jump behind him went. It's true that watching the battle here is a bit dangerous. The four people fought, each with their own perverted methods, causing the building to crumble and collapse. Especially Lord Naruto. That simple is even more unusual than destroying the team. On the contrary, the rich people all have telescopes on hand. Even if it is more than 300 meters, they can see clearly with the telescope. Another side on the battlefield. Naruto saw that there was no way to attack Deidara at this time, so he temporarily gave up chasing him. On the contrary, Aren't there two more below? Killing these two first is the same. On the contrary, Deidara's small explosive planes are no threat to him. Retracting his gaze, Naruto glanced towards the other two locations. At this time, Sasori had already escaped more than 100 meters. Seeing that Naruto was not chasing after him, he stopped at the top of a large building. So, it's almost time to use that technique. As if making some kind of decision, Sasori's 10 fingers danced continuously. The chakra thread pulling the third Kazekage's puppet from behind, falling beside him. Coincidence, puppet's secret technique. With a soft shout, Sasori clasped his hands in salute and formed a hand seal. Seal complete. Accompanied by a round of mechanical expansion shaft-type rotating sound, that puppet body happened to tremble slightly. Good job, good job. The sound of wood creaking rang out. Sasori's right half puppet body, every single part was rapidly loosening and contracting, combining with the left half of his body. The same situation as Sasori's body appeared, and there was also that third Kazekage puppet. Only the third Kazekage puppet disappeared as the left half of his body. Each chakra thread connected the two puppet halves, rapidly shrinking and pressing closer. Another revolving sound rang out. Sasori's body and the third Kazekage's puppet body had combined into a puppet. The left half is Sasori form. The right half is the third Kazekage form. Secret technique complete. That way, I can better utilize these two bodies' abilities to complete even more devastating attacks. Sasori muttered to himself. While talking, his right arm was slightly raised. Jet black sand iron spread out from the skeleton of the puppet's right arm, instantly forming a row of half-meter-long sand iron spikes floating in front of Sasori. Building below. Just now, Kakuzu was able to get a knife through his chest from Susanoo. His body tensed up on the ground for a moment, but now he was jumping up and down happily. Only now, Kakuzu's body, like Sasori's, had undergone huge changes. The chest of the earth element, the heart element, was crushed to death. On the shoulder of fire, wind attribute mask, peace and safety are preserved. The remaining lightning attribute Earth Grudge Demon and water attribute Earth Grudge Demon were hidden by Kakuzu before he received the attack. Just took advantage of the time when Naruto controlled Susanoo to chase and kill Deidara inside. Kakuzu has merged all four masks into his body. He was like Gamamaru at this moment, his limbs touching the ground and lying flat on the ground. The corners of the mouth were sewn together, completely cracked open. A large mass of squirming black lines extended out from the mouth. Even his body parts also have large patches of black lines moving around him, floating. It was as if those black lines had life force and looked extremely terrible. Especially special were the two masks on his back. The mask, which looked like two people with heads, stood tall on Kakuzu's back. Makes his already terrifying appearance look even more ferocious and terrifying. Sasori, prepare to attack. Kakuzu's skull lifted slightly, facing the rooftop of the suburb, standing straight. Sasori, loudly shouting one sentence. As he finished speaking, Naruto's Susanoo under his feet touched the ground for a moment. Moving. Boom boom. Suddenly, a large patch of black line broke through the ground, like a life-giving vine, and coiled straight towards Naruto. Except Susanoo can completely transform into a physical form. The remaining three forms all have their own weaknesses. This biggest weakness is that Susanoo can be placed under the ground, and is not even protected by Susanoo. If Earth Release were to bind his hands, and Earth Release suddenly launch a sneak attack from underground, then using Susanoo would truly be dangerous. But now, Naruto was caught off guard and just happened to get hit. Surrounded by black lines, tightly tied. Although he struggled, the black lines only became tighter. These guys, the methods, and the original work have undergone some changes. Naruto's face was slightly frightened, and he resolutely gave up struggling. Susanoo himself and Kakuzu on the other side, the distance between them was approximately 40 to 50 meters. Maybe Kakuzu can bring those black tentacles of his along the long distance. So, this is enough to see that Kakuzu's current strength is even greater than the original. More harmful. Moreover, he fused all four masks onto his body. The four masks can also activate ninjutsu at any time, forming a fortress. Sasori didn't even need to mention it. Even his appearance had undergone such huge changes. Two sets of puppet bodies fused together? Although Naruto did not understand Sasori's purpose in doing so, He could roughly judge that his strength had increased compared to the last time they fought. Just the big weak point on the chest of the character Sasori had already disappeared, leaving no chance for Naruto to take advantage of it. Go away, A7. Kakuzu snorted softly, controlling those black tentacles, and forcefully aimed towards them. Side pull up. Immediately, Naruto's body was like a kite with a broken string, being pulled out from within Susanu's protective barrier. Let's go! Sasori shouted softly as he waved his right hand. Those sand iron tips that had long condensed in front of him, like arrows unstrung from a bowstring, shot towards Naruto in the sky. These sharp tips are only half a meter long, smooth and narrow, and can fly extremely fast in the air. The girl was in front of Naruto in a flash. Flying Thunder God technique. Naruto still had a slight smile on his face. Even when facing this kind of coordinated attack, he didn't feel any confusion. The thought of urging in the middle, tightly bound the body. A bang disappeared from the original place without a trace. Shui 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 plus. A moment later, the sound of something being pierced rang out. Kakuzu's black lines that were moving and floating in the air were pierced by the sharp tips of the sand iron. Disgusting. You ran away again? It's the Flying Thunder God technique again. Kakuzu was so angry that he almost cursed. This Hiraition technique was too strange. Tie should really be banned. Obviously the body was tied so tightly. Maybe he could be under the type. This situation run away. Whether this is left to the player or not, must report him for turning on the hack and let him handle it. You guys have good coordination. You guys are all so arrogant. Yet you can still achieve such tacit understanding. It's really surprising. Naruto stood at the roof of a tall building more than 100 meters away. His arms crossed, quietly looking at the two people across from him, feeling a little confused. If these three people were to separate, Naruto could easily kill them all. It's really the way they fight together, making Naruto's current situation a bit confusing. Moving. Just now, several attacks came down, whether it was 2,000 Shadow Clones or Rasen Shuriken. Even Susanukin, the chakra consumption is extremely huge. At this moment, Naruto's body's chakra was almost completely depleted, and there was no longer any. Get something good attack effectively. Just knock Kakuzu's heart out. If this continues, the situation will only become more and more disadvantageous to Naruto. What about Kodo Amatsukami? This is a one-time great killing move. It is not a last resort and cannot be used carelessly. That's right. Naruto was stunned, suddenly thinking that he still had a chakra energy replenishment device on him. Putting his hand on his stomach, Naruto lowered his head and asked softly, Kurama, wait a minute. When there is no chakra under the situation, borrowing a little from you is also not a problem. Hey! The Ninetales kept leaning against the seal to rest inside the space. But Naruto experienced these things every day. The Ninetales really saw them all clearly. It knows that Naruto has implanted that pair of Mangekyo Sharingan, so it can easily do it to him. Control. But Naruto had no choice but to do so. Instead, he gently asked and negotiated with it. In the eyes of the Ninetales, Naruto's respect for it, that arrogant vanity, gained great satisfaction. Furthermore, Naruto had previously entered the sealed space, and when he met it, he had called it Kurama by its name for the first time. Up until this moment, the Ninetales still foolishly thought that Naruto and the Sage of Six Paths had relatives relationship where, therefore right now, the Ninetales can be said to have completely lowered its guard against Naruto, shrinking. Not much hostility. The Ninetales happened to not be sleeping at that time, and would also organize the Akatsuki organization to revive the Ten Tails, so that he could hear it clearly. What the Ten Tails is, the Ninetales naturally knows very well. Previously, the Six Paths Sage had reduced the Ten Tails' overall strength to 9 points, and after the Nine-Tailed Beast had personally told them about the Ten Tails. Thank you, Kurama. I can still hold on for a while. If I really can't beat these guys, I'll come seek your help again. Naruto stroked his belly again, his thoughts directed towards the Ninetales' sealed space, and said, I know. Ninetales lazily agreed, closed its eyes, and started to doze off again. Hidden Village. A large place on the square. His head was chopped off by Naruto and brought back to Hidden Village. At this time, he was tied to a stone pillar by the 5 Flower Kings. His head was strung to one side, tied together with his hair by a small rope. No matter how Hiden struggled, there was no way he could escape. The stone pillar square surrounds a large circle of Hittite, forehead treasure. Ninja wearing men in village. From the beginning, there were still quite a few ninjas who, after seeing Haiden's head being cut off, were still roaring loudly and felt fear in their hearts. But when the ninja group found out Haiden was actually an Akatsuki member and had killed over 100 ninja in the village, immediately, the rich people all turned purple with anger. No one was afraid, surrounding Haiden, pointing, spitting everywhere, almost using saliva to drown Haiden's heart. You bastards, quickly let me go. If you let me successfully escape from here, I will definitely take you to see the evil god. I am truly an immortal. I will never die. Even if you kill me, one day, I will crawl out of the ground, take advantage of your sleep, sneak up on your bed, and bite your throats. Haiden roared angrily. He also saw that after his arrogant rebuttal, the surrounding ninja immediately lowered their voices. Quite a few people had a bit of fear on their faces, afraid that Haiden would really do such a thing. Even though Haiden's head was cut off, he was still able to scold them completely unharmed. This kind of thing about an immortal body is definitely not fake. What? Scared? If you're scared, then hurry up and release me. Maybe I'll even spare your lives in a good mood. Seeing that his threat had some effect, Haiden continued to shout arrogantly. It's just that his head at this moment was hanging on a rope and swinging back and forth. Combined with those arrogant words, it looked a bit funny. You will never have this chance. At the moment when the sound of the crowd's curses gradually disappeared, a voice suddenly rang out from behind the crowd. The crowd turned their heads to look back. Only saw Haku and Sujetsu, two people, at this time had recovered quite a bit. Although many places on the body are bandaged, it does not affect normal walking. Mr. Bach! It's Mr. Bach. Chill. Don't talk. I heard that Mr. Zabuza just died in battle to protect the village. Mr. Bach had the best relationship with Mr. Zabuza. He must be very miserable right now. The ninja group began to whisper and discuss. Everyone already knew roughly what happened. The crowd automatically made way for him. Haku and Setsu both had pale faces and frowned, obviously not in a good mood. Without greeting, he quickly walked towards Haiden. What? It's you two. That Kakaza guy seems to be too lenient. You guys can actually bring out the truth so well. Bah! Haiden chattered on, his words unfinished. Bachman did not fail to raise his hand and forcefully jerked it on his face. Immediately, Haiden's originally swollen face, his cheeks had already receded a bit, and once again began to swell red. Talking to people like you scum, can only waste my saliva. Haku looked at Haiden with an indifferent expression. Looking at the enemy who killed Zabuza before his eyes, Haku had only one feeling in his heart, and that was hatred. Extremely regretful. It's really like Haiden, this kind of guy, kills people like a slug. Zabuza probably just has a bullet of blood on his hand. This kind of guy who kills people for fun and doesn't have any humanity to talk to can only waste all his time. Huck, that Naruto guy just said it right. Since this guy is an immortal, then let's put him on the fire and roast him. Let him die in this kind of pain. It can also be considered as Zabuza-senpai's revenge. Sujetsu patted Haku's shoulder and said comfortingly. Zabuza died. Sujetsu felt uncomfortable in his heart. But compared to Haku and Zabuza's feelings, it was nothing at all. Haku nodded in agreement. Then he turned his head to look at the surrounding hidden village ninjas and said in a low voice, Everyone, please help me with this. Go to the firewood warehouse and help me move some firewood back and put this guy on the fire to roast. I want to see if his so-called immortal body can withstand the burning fire. Yes, Mr. Bach, leave it to us. The ninja group nodded in agreement. Zabuza used some of his strength to take revenge, and they were all very satisfied. The crowd that had just formed into a group dispersed in an instant. The tycoons jostled each other and ran towards the direction of the house being demolished. Hey, roasting someone on the fire? Isn't this method of yours too cruel? Haiden's eyes revealed a hint of fear, his heart already starting to panic a bit. Immortal body is indeed not wrong. But this is only aimed at sword and saber-type injuries, which can automatically recover. Like this kind of head was cut off by someone, then hung up. He is unable to restore his body to its original position. Moreover, want to put his body on the fire to roast? He is not a close-knit fellow, if not roasted for a while. His flesh will be burned to the point of melting. What else to say about immortal body? I'm afraid it will be buried in the sea of fire. People like you, scum? What right do you have to say others are cruel? Have you ever thought about how innocent those people you killed were? Haku glared at Haiden, then immediately turned away, not wanting to see the disgusted face in his heart again. He was afraid that he would not be able to hold it in any longer and would take out a kunai and poke 100 transparent holes into Haiden's body to vent the deep resentment in his heart. At the same time, Hinata and Karen, leading more than 100 elite ninjas from the village, galloped through the woods. Their destination, naturally, was still the entrance to the Wave Country, that road above the battlefield. These 100 or so ninjas were elites trained in the village, each one possessing the strength of a jonin. It can be said that Minin village has the highest fighting power. But Hinata and Karen led them to the battlefield, not to participate in the battle. Although these people are all jonin, but participating in that kind of battle, without a doubt, will only result in death. Hinata's original intention was to go to the nearby battlefield, so that if anything happened, she could send reinforcements at any time. Hinata is very clear about the strength of those people within the Akatsuki organization. Each one has Kage-level standards. Naruto is very strong, but it is difficult to guarantee that there will be no unexpected moments. Very quickly, Hinata and Karen brought a group of people to the forest outskirts. Moving forward 400 or 500 meters, one can see a square behind the entrance of the Wave Kingdom city gate. Seeing the tall buildings in the square, all destroyed to the point of sinking into the ground, the ninja group was filled with shock, not thinking that the battle situation would be so intense. Boom boom tilde tilde tilde. Suddenly, behind the ruins of a tall building in the square, there was a green energy pillar shooting straight up to the horizon. Following that energy pillar of light appeared at the same time, there was also a fierce hurricane. The strong wind blew up the dusty square, making it impossible to see the details of the situation. What a huge amount of energy. No, this energy isn't chakra. It must be Naruto opening the 8 gates release technique. Karen pushed her glasses up, her face solemn. Waiting in the land of waves for so many years, everyone is familiar with each other. Although Naruto's 8 gates release armor normally wouldn't be used carelessly, Karen also knows the general situation. Karen sensed the huge range. At the same time, she sensed Naruto. She also sensed 3 other powerful auras. Chakra compared to normal people are all huge, but the most important thing is still the other 3 people's body is made of weapons. Can be heard from far away. Hinata, look at what the situation is over there right now. Karen turned her head to look at Hinata. Yes. Hinata nodded. Her eyes immediately narrowed. Wide-eye. The eyelids and sides of the face crawled up each blue vein. Hinata's vision also entered a gray-white state. The radius of several kilometers were all under her clairvoyant vision. This is... Naruto-kun opened up 8 gates release. Right in the direction the 3 Akatsuki initiated the attack. 3 other people. Speaking up to hear, Hinata's voice suddenly stopped, her face showing slight surprise. It's not that she didn't want to continue talking, but the 3 guys' appearances were one was uglier than the other. One was more unusual than the other. Standing in the air on the back of the clay bird, Deidara reluctantly spoke of the past. Deidara's right hand was now taking out a clay ninja tool from the pouch at his waist. The palm of the hand's mouth creak swallowed a scene, which was seen in Hinata's eyes. Hinata's physiology has already shown a hint of discomfort. Sasori was like 2 different human forms, forced together, surrounded by a large amount of sand iron. Kakuzu's was the most disgusting, each black tentacle like a series of insects, squirming and dancing around. Mouth open wide to ear. From mouth also sprayed out a large amount of black tentacles. What? Hinata. Karen saw Hinata was stunned and asked again. Although she could sense the existence of the Akatsuki organization, she could not see their appearances clearly. Hinata shook her head. No, nothing. Let's get a little closer to the past. Maybe we can provide some help to Naruto-kun. On the streets, the fighting situation was extremely fierce. Opened the 6th gate of 8 gates, Naruto, and disappeared from the spot. Only a green afterimage could be seen, flying straight towards Kakuzu like a ghost. Through the recent battle, Naruto had roughly clarified his train of thought. Deidara, Sasori. Kakuzu among the 3, the weakest at the moment is probably still Kakuzu. At least Kakuzu's ninjutsu didn't pose much of a threat to Naruto. The 5 elements release technique was powerful, but it still couldn't pose any threat to Naruto. But Sasori and Deidara are not like that. Deidara can fly. Naruto doesn't have flying ability. It's a bit difficult to catch him. Sasori was proficient in using poison. And what mysteries were hidden in that combined puppet body? For now, in the situation that is not clear, the most stable thing is to first deal with Kakuzu and weaken their fighting strength. Zulfast? Kakuzu's face that couldn't be called human revealed a look of fear, not knowing why. Seeing Naruto stepping on the ruined bricks and rushing towards him, a huge pressure rose in his heart. But no matter what, Kakuzu was the one who fought with the first Hokage back then. So he still had this level of determination. Very quickly, he suppressed the extremely uncomfortable feeling in his heart, frowned, and launched his attack. Let's go! At Kakuzu's light shout, Naruto advanced on the path above. Suddenly from the ground, squirming black tentacles rushed out, one by one winding towards Naruto. Naruto naturally also realized the danger, hurriedly jumped up, trying to get past the large patch of black tentacles in front of him. Retired, Naruto's 2 feet off the ground, flying into the air about 3 meters high, crossed a distance of about 5 or 6 meters. But when the force of the attack stopped, Naruto fell down. The mud underfoot stirred for a moment, and a large patch of thick black tentacles broke through the ground and once again coiled towards Naruto. What can I do? Naruto muttered. At this moment, his body fell straight down. Without any effort, there was no way to escape. Naruto raised his hand and slightly waved it. A specially made Hiraishin kunai appeared in his palm. As he swung his arm in the middle, the kunai flew towards the wall on the right side of the building. The kunai made a loud bang and hit the wooden window above the fence. Wow! Flying Thunder God technique activated. Over there, the black tentacles were 30 centimeters away from Naruto's ankles. Naruto's body turned into orange light and disappeared from sight. Next moment, Naruto stood still on the windowsill. Those black tentacles could be detected on the ground at any time, creating a huge obstacle for Naruto's actions. Therefore, Naruto also decisively changed a path forward, stepping on the wall and running at high speed towards Kakuzu's other side, approaching the past. Just as he charged forward less than 5 meters, he was confronted by a group of white little birds. The first one fell down, the next one charged forward and charged straight at Naruto. The little flying bird's body is no more than half a meter long, but it can fly and jump extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, there were 2 little flying birds, reaching a meter range in front of Naruto. Screech! Deidara let out a low shout, and the 2 little flying birds exploded, creating 2 blazing balls of fire. Behind the 2 little fey birds, there were more than 10 little fey birds left. The first one fell down, the next one advanced and charged forward together. Boom, boom, tilde, tilde, bush, bush, tilde, tilde. Immediately, explosions rang out one after another, and black smoke billowed everywhere. Even the wall of that big building had a huge hole punched out, and bricks fell down. Success! Deidara's eyes narrowed, staring at the situation where the black smoke was. In the eyes of Kakuzu and Sasori, they still had very strong fighting power. Deidara tried his best to maintain his sanity and did not release his ultimate move. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Suddenly, an extremely ear-piercing buzzing sound came from within the black smoke. Waiting until the black smoke cleared a bit, on the edge of the wall that had been carved out into a large trench, Naruto was standing there quietly. Around his body, there is a ring of bones surrounding him, emitting green energy, which is the first form Susanoo can take. It seems that just now those little fey birds exploded, but were forcibly blocked by Susanoo. At this moment, Naruto raised his right hand above his head, his palm pulling up a rotating chakra ball of light. The ball of light next to it carried several sharp wind wings. Wind style, universal speaker sword, Naruto shouted loudly, suddenly swung it with force, and threw the Rasen Shuriken in his hand out. The direction of attack was a few dozen meters away, where Kakuzu was standing under the building. Disgusting. Is it that horrible technique again? Kakuzu was terrified and kicked his horse. Why do you keep staring at me and hitting me? Can't beat the 2 of them? The power of the Rasen Shuriken explosion was witnessed by Kakuzu himself, flying in the air at lightning speed. Furthermore, the burst of light was enough to cover a space of more than 10 meters. Anyone surrounded by that exploding beam of light would be slashed into dust by the countless tiny wind blades within. Kakuzu had no doubt that if he was caught in the Rasen Shuriken explosion, within the range, the remaining 4 hearts must have all died at the same time. Under his eyes, Deidara had just finished a small bird attack, making a sticky grenade. Internal rescue. It is too late. Sasori was still standing on the top floor, 1 foot on the roof of the house on the edge of the fence. Wall display pose. That appearance is very imposing and elegant. The distance is too far. Needing this item to help is not really big. Kakuzu's mind was racing with thoughts. At the same time she was running away. Really? Not a bit slow. Those black tentacles that stretched from the feet to the ground quickly retracted back into the body. The other lying on the ground, the veins on its limbs all burst out. Suddenly thrust deeply and jumped. Jump up about 5 or 6 meters high. This distance of words is completely sufficient. Kakuzu, who was in the air, had already made up his mind. Although Rasen Shuriken's explosive range can cover an area of more than 10 meters. But completely exploded also need less than that promised time. And Kakuzu only needed to control the black tentacles on his body, tightly gripping the front window building, using the pulling power of the black tentacles. He pulled his body towards the other side of the building, completely avoiding the Rasen Shuriken's explosive attack range. BBB equals. In the blink of an eye, the Rasen Shuriken flew to Kakuzu below the ground. Kakuzu also waved his hand and threw out black tentacles, wrapping around the window of the mansion. Humph, as expected. My combat experience is still a level higher. I am indeed a candidate who has fought with the #1 Hokage. Kakuzu sneered in his heart. What nine-tailed Jinchuriki. Stronger pressure is just a small matter. Just everything is calculated by him. But in the next blink of an eye, his smile was held back, a sense of danger. A strong feeling suddenly struck him from behind. Just saw that the Rasen Shuriken, which should have exploded strongly, actually exploded in one go. The moon-colored mist disappeared. Instead, it was Naruto whose entire body was filled with green energy, his 2 legs. On the ground slid out 2 Taoist priest figure trajectory behind. With a whoosh, Naruto transformed into an afterimage and appeared behind Kakuzu. Disgusting. How can this be? Kakuzu cursed loudly, feeling his heart skip a beat. Why did Rasen Shuriken turn into Naruto? Furthermore, the green energy emanating from Naruto's body, isn't that the same as when he opened the 8 gates release technique earlier? In the end, through all these connections, Kakuzu's brain CPU was about to burn out. Still wanted to understand the key point. Naruto used the clone technique through the cover of the black smoke explosion flying birds. His true form turned into Rasen Shuriken, was thrown out by the clone, but only went out again. Near his goal, Peacock direction. Naruto was about to start talking nonsense with so he swung his fists and punched Kakuzu in the back. Break, 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 break. The fists were continuously swung out, and soon after images appeared. Because each punch was swung so fast, it rubbed against the air and created sparks. Kakuzu spat out a large mouthful of fresh blood. He only felt himself behind him collide. Must be like a heavy rain strike. Each punch would bring intense burning pain. The 2 earthly resentment masks on his back were shattered on the spot. At the same time, that heavy punch was so enormous that it caused the bones on Kakuzu's back to crackle. A loud bang. Receiving a fierce blow, Kakuzu's body was like a cannonball, flying straight down. Go out. On the ground throughout a nearly 2-meter deep human-shaped big hole. But don't think that this will get the job done. A hit knock 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 knock. Naruto was still standing in the air, his fists swinging at a speed several times faster than before. Every time he swung his fist, a fiery fire fist would rub against the air. Kakuzu once again felt a wave of intense pain throughout his body. The pain felt the same as just now. When the fierce fire attack stopped, a huge deep hole was thrown into the ground. In the air, Deidara stood on the back of the flying clay bird. Seeing the battle between Naruto and Kakuzu just now, he couldn't help but feel scared and amazed. The main body transformed into Rasen Shuriken, allowing the clone to throw the main body towards Kakuzu towards the past. Most importantly, it was still that pair of eyes like Itachi's. Possessing powerful dojutsu abilities, able to manipulate that 10-meter-tall giant Susanoo. Walking towards him, he revealed a determined look in his eyes. My art is the most perfect. There is nothing that can compare to it exploding in an instant, yes. Peacock? That kind of terrifying physical technique ability, really only a monster like him would use it. Sasori ran while muttering to himself. Even though that face that was made up of puppets did not show any human emotions. But his voice was still filled with fear. Eating the full weight of the peacock's fist, Kakuzu almost no chance of survival. Even if he could survive, his strength would be 0, and he would basically pose no threat to me. Adding to that previous Susanoo slash, it killed Kakuzu's Earth attribute heart. Naruto's body fell straight down, his 2 feet firmly landing on the ground. To be safe, Naruto still intended to go to that big hole himself to see if Kakuzu lived or died. If Kakuzu isn't dead, then take advantage of his illness to cut the blade first, and then talk. But when Naruto just took a step forward, he didn't charge a few meters. Sasori's rescue also arrived at this time. As Sasori's right arm swung, a large piece of half a meter long sand iron spikes. The one in front fell down, the one behind advanced forward and shot straight towards Naruto. Naruto knew clearly that Sasori's sand iron contained deadly poison. Just being skinned and having the skin rubbed a little bit will immediately cause poisoning and loss of resistance. Therefore, Naruto had no choice but to suddenly stop, repeatedly flip backwards and start dodging. Sizzle sizzle. Each delicate sand iron spike continuously wiped Naruto's clothes and stabbed into the ground, forming a large patch of thorny ground. The Sand World Law! Sasori let out a soft shout, swinging his right arm again. The ground thorn bushes received control, and in a flash, suddenly rose from the ground, condensing into a large net-like patch of sharp thorns, once again charging towards the fleeing Naruto. In the deep pit, Kakuzu was smashed into the mud. His fingers suddenly twitched. Immediately, he put his 2 arms on the ground and slowly crawled up from the ground. Disgusting. I was actually forced into this kind of miserable state. Kakuzu cursed softly, feeling his whole body about to fall apart in pain. 5 earthly grudge masks. 4 of them are broken now. Only 1 water attribute earth grudge mask remained, tightly protected by him on his chest. Just now, under that fiercely burning fist, he barely managed to keep his life. If it weren't for his special body, other than his heart, all his other organs would be replaced by those black tentacles. Bones and body structure are not too similar to normal people. At this time, I'm afraid he was beaten to the point of not having the strength to get up. He could only gasp for breath lying on the ground. I have only 1 heart left of my 5. It is not suitable to continue fighting with a 9-tailed Jinchuriki now. Let's go first and fill in all the hearts first and then talk about it later. Kakuzu beside muttered. Beside turned his head to look a bit for himself to stop Naruto from attacking Sasori. Gritting his teeth, he escaped the big hole inside, entered a middle-class building, and quickly ran in one direction. Just now, on the top floor, watching the battle of the 10-man bald squad, Kakuzu had already discovered their existence. If it were normal, he would not be able to value these Xia Ren's hearts at all. But now that all 4 hearts were destroyed, he basically had no fighting ability. Can only go ahead and find enough 4 hearts to fill in the gaps. Wait until later to find a suitable heart to change. The square is more than 300 meters wide, with a 6-story high-rise building roof. More than 10 people wearing blue ninja vests stood at the edge of the building, holding telescopes in their hands, observing the great battle taking place above the square. Of course, this possibility is only in the eyes of the 10 of them during the Great War. After all, this kind of level of battle is something that these Xia Ren rarely encounter once in 100 years. As a ninja, everyone has a dream of being a strong person. This kind of ability that can make a building collapse with a wave of the hand is also the strength that everyone dreams of having. Therefore, the bald squad of 10 people all looked very serious. Captain, it's hard to say where we stand. Don't we need to hide a bit more? It's still the same as just now. Sticking our heads out to watch the battle is relatively safe. With the same salary released in hand telescope, pulled the bald leader arm. Bak, don't disturb me from watching Lord Naruto fight. The bald leader immediately became angry and raised his hand to knock on the top of Liang's head. Liang hugged his swollen head again, revealing a miserable expression. Captain, can you please stop hitting me on the head? That will make me stupid. The bald team leader continued to set up his telescope to observe the battle, shaking his arm. Not really wanting to pay attention to this stupid kid. You are a bit slow-witted. The enemy is fighting with Lord Naruto a few hundred meters away. How could you have time to run so far and pay attention to us, really? Captain, why are you scolding me? Kung Luong looked silent, lowered his head, and complained in a low voice. Possessing this captain is good in everything. Normally he is not bad to him. But this mouth is a bit unforgiving and usually has a bit of a Xiaobao temper. And at the slightest thing he would take his head and get angry. Just as Liang finished speaking, he glanced over from the corner of his eyes at the skyscraper behind him, and a black figure jumped straight up to the top floor. That person's entire body was covered in black tentacles. His lips were wide open to his ears, and even his mouth was covered in black tentacles. His appearance was extremely disgusting and horrible. Most importantly, he ran onto the road, his eyes showing green light. It was as if the 300 years that had never touched that human woman's eyes wished they could eat up the lives of this small group of villagers. Captain! Captain! Oh no! The enemy is sneak attacking. Kung Luong, immediately scared to the face full of fear, raised his hand to continuously stir the bald leader's arm. The bald team leader thought that the salary was still being harassed, disturbing him from observing the battle on the square above. Immediately, anger appeared on his face. He put down the binoculars and raised his hand, wanting to give Kung Luong a violent knock on the head. Idiot! I told you, don't disturb me from observing Lord Naruto. As soon as he finished speaking, the bald leader saw his group rushing straight towards Kakuzu. Immediately, he was so scared that he cried out in fear, and the telescope in his hand slipped out and fell straight down the stairs. There are enemies! Enemy attack! The bald leader hurriedly took out a kunai and roared loudly, reminding his teammates, but unfortunately he shouted but was still one step too late. Kakuzu had already leapt several meters or so, entering full attack range, only to see Kakuzu wave his hands. Beside his body, floating those black tentacles, immediately as if growing eyes, rushed towards the 10 ninjas surrounding him. Boom, boom, tilde, tilde, tilde. The tentacles swirled around and coiled up. The 10 ninjas didn't have time to react. They were tied up tightly and firmly. The tentacles exerted force again, and the 10 ninjas were lifted up high with their feet off the ground. The ninja group's faces revealed painful expressions, and they immediately felt like they couldn't breathe. Their bodies were being held down and were in constant pain. Humph! Are they really all a bunch of chunin? The strongest chakra vibrator is just a chunin. Calculating. Now is not the time to be picky. Kakuzu snorted softly, glanced at these 10 ninjas, his words filled with disdain. Immediately, a large mass of black tentacles burst out from his chest, directly searching towards the chests of the 4 ninjas. At the critical moment, 2 figures stepped on the wall of the building and jumped to the top floor. 8 trigrams without palm. The first one to land was Hyuga Hinata. She activated her Byakugan state and had already seen clearly everything that happened upstairs. As soon as he felt the body, he waved his hand and struck out an 8 trigram soft palm. A transparent air cannon palm wind from Hinata's palm wave flew straight towards Kakuzu's chest. Feeling the dangerous aura of the 8 trigram sky palm coming, Kakuzu had no choice but to temporarily give up the chance of robbing the heart. Both knees slightly bent, let go of the body, and jump back. Kakuzu avoids the 8 trigram sky palm attack. His body was used to wrap around the 10 black line ninja tentacles, but it just happened to encounter the 8 trigram sky palm attack. Bagua Void Palm belongs to the Soft Fist series, still the same old acupressure routine. Although it had great force, it was completely not enough to cut off those black tentacles. But Kakuzu felt a pulling force from the black line on the tentacle, causing his body to swing to one side, almost causing him to fall to the ground. Disgusting. Kakuzu cursed under his breath, barely steadying his body. Drink 8 trigrams without palm. Hinata took the opportunity and struck Kakuzu with several palm strikes. Air cannon palm wind continuously came, looking to exchange for the heart wanting to let go first. Kakuzu was forced to let go of the black tentacles that were entangled around the 10 ninjas. If he continues to be forced down by this little girl in front of him, he will bring with him 10 obstacles, and sooner or later he will fall for it. Cough, 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 save. The bald leader covered his neck and coughed violently. The remaining 9 team members all acted the same way as the bald man. They could only sigh in their hearts. It was so good to be able to breathe fresh air again. Kung Luong turned his head to look at Hinata, his face showing gratitude. Cough, cough, Miss Hinata. Thank you for saving us. Hinata nodded and beckoned. Big brother, hurry and come here. Be careful. The enemy might launch another attack. Yes, Miss Hinata. The bald-headed ninja squad of 10 had already recovered a bit. They quickly got up from the ground and ran towards Hinata. Hinata, what kind of monster is this guy? He looks so disgusting. Karen frowned, looking at Kakuzu's body covered in black tentacles, only feeling a surge of fear in her heart. Oh, that's right. Hinata nodded. Just now at the other side of the forest. She wanted to say it, but she didn't know how to describe it. Kakuzu's eyes were fixed. He glanced at Hinata and Karen and said, "Interesting. 2 people again? Your hearts are even better than theirs. I accept," Kakuzu just said, already stepped forward, running towards Hinata and the other side. Hoo. On the outskirts of the building, a group of ninja wearing blue vests jumped out from below, landing behind Hinata and Karen. The 100 ninjas were a step too slow, but in this battle to protect the village, they were still able to exert some force. The crowd's eyes revealed hatred as they looked at Kakuzu, angrily roaring. "It's not just you two, you damned monster. That's right. We are all ninjas of the hidden village. We absolutely won't allow you to destroy our village again. Akatsuki people all deserve to die. Boss, kill that guy to avenge Mr. Zabuza." While talking, quite a few ninjas couldn't hold back and launched their attacks first. They took out kunai and shuriken from their bodies and waved their hands towards Kakuzu. "Huh, a whole 100 shangnin? What a pity with my current body condition. I'm afraid there's no way to capture all the hearts with so many people." Kakuzu suddenly stopped walking, secretly pondering in his heart. Under the eyes, there was only a water attribute, earth grudge, and goo heart left. In front of these more than 100 ninja, except for the leading white-eyed little girl whose strength was not bad. The rest were not worth seeing. Even in this form, with only 1 heart, Kakuzu's strength was already 10 out of 10. Want to deal with this more than 100 people? Basically have no chance of winning. While dodging the shuriken from left and right, Kakuzu began to slowly move his footwork backwards, wanting to start preparing to run away and retreat. "Miss Hinata, get rid of him. Miss Hinata, kill that Akatsuki bastard." Finally, a shuriken shot out on the ground, grunting and making a hole in Kakuzu's undulating back. The shuriken attack stopped abruptly. The 100 blue-clad ninja raised their hands and shouted loudly, looking at Kakuzu behind them to cheer and encourage. Kakuzu was a bit stunned, quickly looking back. Disgusting. When the hell is this going to happen? Seeing the long-haired figure 5 meters behind him, a strong sense of unease surged up in his heart. Hinata didn't know when, but had already surrounded Kakuzu from behind, blocking Kakuzu's way out. At this moment, Hinata's hands were spread out in front of her, showing a somewhat strange posture. "Mister." A rotating bagua formation flashed on the ground and disappeared. Kakuzu's position was also within the formation. "You're already inside the attack range. There is no way you will have a chance to escape." Hinata's face was resolute, looking at Kakuzu. A trace of killing intent appeared in her eyes. 64 palms of the 8 trigrams soft fist. As soon as she finished speaking, Hinata let out a hiss and disappeared without a trace. Next, in the blink of an eye, he was in front of Kakuzu. 8 trigrams, 2 palms. Break. Kakuzu screamed miserably, a mouthful of crimson liquid spraying out from his mouth. This bagua palm attack path is strange. Moreover, the attack speed is extremely fast. There is basically no chance to dodge. 8 trigrams, 4 palms. Break. 8 trigrams, 8 palms. Break. 8 trigrams, 16 palms. Break. 8 trigrams, 32 palms. Break. Gossip Chapter 64. Break. Every time a palm landed on Kakuzu's body, a wave of chakra force would rush out from his back, and his body's major acupoints would also be sealed, causing more internal injuries, until the last palm strike hit Kakuzu's chest, sending him flying backwards. At that moment, the remaining water attribute earth resentment mask on his chest also shattered with a rustling sound. His body fell to the ground with a thud, and he had completely stopped breathing, without making any sound. "Is he dead?" Hinata frowned, slowly withdrawing his 8 trigrams palm stance. Behind the 100 blue-clad ninjas, a few bold men quickly moved forward and squatted down to probe Kakuzu's breathing. Confirming that Kakuzu was dead, joy immediately appeared on their faces. "That's great. Miss Hinata, the enemy is dead." Hearing this news, Hinata's furrowed eyebrows finally relaxed. Karen also breathed a sigh of relief, finally not needing to see that disgusting tentacled person again, appearing and disappearing before her eyes. Miss Hinata is really amazing. The 8 trigrams palm attack looks really not simple. That still needs to be said. Miss Hinata is really Lord Naruto's future wife. How can her strength be any worse? How did I hear that it was Lord Naruto who was chasing after Miss Hinata before? Seeing the ninja group starting to discuss loudly, The discussion topic also slightly deviating from the track. Hinata's face immediately turned slightly red. However, over the years, Hinata's personality has also changed quite a bit. No longer the little girl from before who was always shy and speechless, being called by people every day, and also wanting to help with all kinds of things in the village. Hinata has long since developed an invisible prestige. Sir, although we cannot do anything great, our most important mission is to keep an eye on Naruto-kun's battle. In case anything unexpected happens, we can come to his rescue at any time. Please, everyone, do not be distracted. Focus on what you need to do. Yes, Miss Hinata. The discussion stopped abruptly. The ninja group immediately collected their minds. After a sound of agreement, they began to leap to a suitable height, observing the battle several hundred meters above the cliff area. They all knew that Hinata's words were very reasonable. At that level of battle, if these people went up now, not only would they not be able to help, but they might even cause more trouble for Naruto. In the eyes, the rich still stood on the side watching. Sasori's state after completing the puppet combination transformation was very different from before. Regardless of whether it was the physical body's flexibility or the flexibility of the sand irons he controlled, there was a clear qualitative leap. Even though Naruto used 8 Gates release, his speed was so fast that after images appeared, he still had no way to easily get close to Sasori. Those sand irons could always launch an attack at any moment, blocking Naruto's path forward, forcing Naruto to take a detour. Naruto stepped on the wall of the castle, continuously dodging and jumping in the middle, avoiding each sharp spike of sand iron. Sasori stood downstairs, his 2 hands continuously waving in the middle, controlling those extremely flexible sand irons, launching an attack towards Naruto. Finally, Naruto followed the second-floor window, entered the second floor, and disappeared from Sasori and Deidara's sight. Drink! Finally, Naruto found the right opportunity, lifted a fist, and pounded like crazy on the second-floor wall. A large spider web-like crack appeared on the wall, and immediately with a loud bang, the entire wall shattered and fell straight down to the floor below. Naruto found the right opportunity, jumped out from the second floor, followed by the fallen rubble, and fell straight down. The eyes and the lower body chakra were not much. Rasen Shuriken is the greatest killing move, but Sasori can use those black sand iron to form a defense. Previously, in the cave, Naruto had an experience. He knew Sasori's sand iron was able to protect well against Rasen Shuriken attacks. Therefore, Naruto did not intend to use ninjutsu to decide victory or defeat. Physical technique was the most suitable choice. That guy, what does he want to do? Sasori stood on the first floor, looking up at the sky, seeing those fallen stone tiles. His first reaction was that Naruto was plotting something. Hurriedly after a few shakes and jumps, avoiding the area where a piece of broken stone and brick fell. When he recovered his aerial vision, Naruto was already as close as he was, less than 10 meters away. Retired, Naruto stepped on the brick that landed in the air, using the force to quickly rush towards Sasori. Dream come true, Sasori shouted loudly. Realizing Naruto's intentions, he could not give Naruto this chance to get close. Left arm raised, pointing towards Naruto in the air. The wrist bone peeled off downward, a round black iron tube extended out from the inside of the forearm. As the iron pipe rapidly moved in the middle, tiny shuriken were sprayed out from the black hole. Immediately, in front of Sasori, layer upon layer of shuriken rain formed, heading straight towards the Naruto, who was rushing towards him. Naruto was a little surprised. Originally, he wanted to activate Susanoo in its first form and withstand this wave of shuriken attacks. Coupled with the speed of the 8 gates, he was able to get close to Sasori and deal a fatal blow. But under the observation of the Sharingan, Naruto sensitively discovered that the shuriken raindrops were mixed with large pieces of explosive talismans that stuck to the shuriken above. Although Sasori used the explosive talisman to hide it relatively well, but Sharingan's ability to see clearly can be observed to the point where the explosive symbol starts. Those flowing, burning chakra rays of light. Flying Thunder God technique. Immediately, Naruto stopped gambling like this and activated the Flying Thunder God technique to escape from the original location. Activating Susanoo takes time. In this kind of emergency situation, only the first form of Susanoo can be activated. But whether the first form can survive that myriad of explosive attacks is completely unknown. Sizzle sizzle. As Naruto disappeared from the spot, all the shuriken raindrops crashed into the wall behind him. As each corresponding explosive talisman ignited, a large patch of fire immediately exploded. The rumbling sound kept ringing. The first floor's original complete wall had now been blown up and collapsed. Somewhere, Sasori saw Naruto disappear in a blink of an eye and immediately began searching for Naruto's whereabouts. Still looking around, he glanced around and found that Naruto had arrived at his position behind the square at the corner. There were quite a few Hiraishin kunai that were previously blown away by Kakazu, lying quietly on the ground at the corner of the square. This puppet body of yours that is neither human nor ghost has become much stronger than before. But what a pity. It is still just a pile of useless wooden blocks, Naruto said, while running like crazy in Sasori's direction. Sasori heard that and immediately became furious. How could he slander his own art like that? Who could stand it? That's right, you bastard. You're not a person who likes to talk. Then today I'll let you see if my puppet can defeat you. This damn bastard. Sasori roared and took out a scroll from behind. Following his wave of the hand in the middle, the scroll was opened with a rustling sound. Red secret technique, 100 muscle performance. Immediately, a scroll with countless ceiling lines rolled up, exploding a large patch of white mist. Then, one by one, red figures fluttered out from within the mist. In the blink of an eye, 100 red-robed puppets appeared, floating in front of Sasori. Each of the red-robed puppets held a sharp blade in their palms. Blue liquid occasionally dripped from the blade. At first glance, one could tell that the object contained deadly poison. And behind those puppets, a blue chakra thread was connected. The source of the thread was Sasori's modified black tube left arm. I have used this technique to destroy a country before. Now, I will use the lump of wood you mentioned to defeat you, this guy. Sasori suddenly shouted, his left arm swinging around. There were 100 red-robed puppets floating in the air, and they also started moving. They raised their long swords in their hands. The one in front fell down. The one behind them charged straight towards Naruto's side. As long as there is someone who can hurt Naruto, the poison can immediately take effect, and the mission can be completed. But Sasori still underestimated Naruto's strength. At the 8 gates release, ultimate speed below, plus Sharingan's clear vision ability, these puppets have no chance of touching Naruto at all. Crack crack. Naruto rushed forward and the situation did not decrease, but in the middle of continuously dodging left and right. He also swung his fists in order to fight back against those red-robed puppets. The moment the red-robed puppet touched Naruto's fist and foot, it was smashed into pieces. For a moment, Naruto's pace did not slow down much. Instead, he continued on the road, with more puppet parts flying everywhere. Drink! Sasori let out a soft shout, as his left arm swung in the middle. The black round tube inside connected to each thin thread also swung even faster. Immediately, those floating in the air headed towards Naruto with a red-robed puppet, as if receiving an order, stopped in the air and stagnated for a moment. Then, the red-robed puppet group divided into 2 groups, palms facing each other in the middle, pulling a very long chakra thread. This thread is different from the thread that Sasori manipulates the puppet. Just looking at the chakra radiance, one can see that it contains a large number of small wind blade serrations. If that thing were to cut through his body, he would probably be instantly cut into 2 pieces. In the blink of an eye, the group of 2 puppets pulled out several dozen chakra threads. Then, they flew very fast in the air, surrounding Naruto in circles, forming a dense circle of wind blade threads, wrapping around Naruto and going. Susanoo-kan. Naruto felt the threat transmitted by this wind blade coil, and had no intention of continuing to be stubborn with the red-robed puppet group. After the eyes closed, green energy radiated from the outside of the body, and the first form of Susanu's skeleton enveloped Naruto's body. Crackle! The wind blade thread circle quickly clenched, tying it tightly to the Susanoo bone shelf. The skeleton let out a loud cracking sound, and the thread was indeed squeezing the joint about 4 to 5 centimeters. But fortunately, Susanoo's defense was still quite tough. Plus, the other puppet group's strength was not enough, and they could not break Susanoo's defense. Almost as soon as Susanoo appeared, Naruto also launched a counterattack. The mind controlled Susanoo to condense a huge arm bone, turning around in a 360-degree horizontal sweep. Boom boom. Immediately, the red-robed puppets surrounding Naruto were all hit by that giant green fist, and were instantly smashed to pieces. The puppet component of the sky-flying demon in the middle, 100 puppet prices now. Only less than 10 prices left. And that large circle of wind blade coil wrapped around Susanu's body was also shattered at the same time, dissipating into thin air. I told you, these puppets you play with are just some tattered wooden lumps. What great use can they be? Naruto opened his mouth to mock Sasori. At the same time, Susanu was cancelled. His limbs suddenly stepped on the ground. With a whoosh sound, he flew straight towards Sasori. Uzumaki Naruto! Sasori suddenly shouted. He had never been so angry before, continuously insulting him and insulting his puppet art. This drove Sasori to the brink of insanity. The reinforced salamander version is ready. Now is the time for you to die. Sasori muttered a sentence, standing still, just like that, watching Naruto charging straight at him. 20 meters, 10 meters, 5 meters. Target enters trap area, initiate counterattack. Sasori's left arm now transformed into a palm state. As his 5 fingers moved together, chakra threads extended out from his fingertips, connecting to the mud below his feet. Immediately after, the ground shook. A giant puppet insect about 7 or 8 meters long broke through the mud on the ground and crawled out from underground. The insect's abdominal muscles expanded. In a completely open state, the place where Naruto's 2 feet stepped on happened to be right at the insect's abdomen. When the insect puppet rushed out, Naruto didn't have any time to react, and was just like that, trapped inside the insect puppet's stomach. Crackle, crackle. The insect's abdominal organs made a loud noise and quickly closed together, trapping Naruto inside. Immediately, the insect's abdomen emitted a mechanical rotating sound, and finger-sized tubes were sent out from various places. The inner tube sprayed out a large amount of quantum mist, filling the entire puppet inside. This guy is extremely sinister. Naruto silently muttered in his heart. At this moment, he stood in the puppet's stomach, and everything was basically pitch black. But through the small hole in the top of the puppet, a little sunlight can also shine in. In addition, Naruto's pair of Sharingan has very strong seeing abilities. At a glance, he could see those purple mists that were everywhere. Wow! Flying Thunder God technique activated. Naruto, without any hesitation, activated Hiraishin, escaping from the puppet's body. In this state, if one hesitates for half a second and inhales a mouthful of purple mist, one will immediately be poisoned and lose the ability to resist. Even if he could use Susanoo to break the flying puppet, Naruto wouldn't dare to bet. Orange figure flashed. Naruto appeared at the outskirts of the square. A specially made Hiraishin kunai stuck in the ground by his feet. This place was already more than 100 meters away from Sasori. In the air, Deidara was unusual this time, not launching an attack for so long, and sent help to Sasori below. He gently lifted his right hand, frowned, and stared at his palm, watching that mouth continuously swallow. Finally, Deidara's mouth corners revealed a smile. Oh my! C2 Giant Dragon wasted a bit of time, but fortunately Sasori-sama is still very strong, able to block the 9-tailed Jinchuriki for so long. Next, it's time for me to show off my skills. While talking, Deidara's palm smacked his lips, making a gagging sound. 2 miniature white clay works appeared in Deidara's palm. He first threw it casually, throwing it downward. With a bang, the white mist exploded, and the little clay dragon transformed into a 10-meter-long white clay dragon. Winged, dragon head, dragon tail, a giant flying dragon. Deidara lightly jumped up, jumping onto the great flying dragon behind him. Let's go. Go complete your mission. Yes. Deidara's nerves were similar. He muttered to the flying dragon under his feet. Immediately, the flying dragon flapped its wings, surrounding Naruto and Sasori's battlefield in the air, and began to rotate and fly. Flying on the road, Phi Long opened that huge dragon's mouth. A large piece of small clay balls continuously rolled out from the dragon's mouth. For a moment, this Phi Long was like a seed sowing a seed. Below the square, the roof, the cracks and crevices. In short, this piece of square in various places are sprinkled with those small white clay balls. Deidara, what do you mean? You want to deal with me too? Sasori stood there, not daring to move for a moment, feeling extremely angry. This kind of white clay small ball looks exactly like Deidara's detonating grenade. All around were scattered everywhere. So how could Sasori fight with a 9-tailed Jinchuriki? Although Sasori was not without the ability to leave this grenade area, but fighting with his hands tied and feet tied, in short, was a bit not good. Hey, big brother Sasori. Next you step back first. Let me go play at home. You just assist me in attacking. Deidara smiled confidently. Swing your hand to take an object from your other hand and throw it downward. Bang! A white mist suddenly appeared, and the thing followed a 5-centimeter-long white clay worm, turning into a 3-meter-long giant worm. Earth Escape Earth Dragon Hidden Technique. The giant worm was about as big as a thigh, falling to the ground behind him. Following Deidara's completed hand seal, it suddenly opened its head and crashed straight into the ground, disappearing without a trace. Earth Dragon Hidden? What a nice name. Isn't it a big worm head? Naruto watched Deidara's series of movements, and like Sasori, stood still, quietly watching him perform. But hearing Deidara call the big worm dragon, he still couldn't help but spit out a sentence. Shut up, hateful. This is my ninjutsu. I can name myself whatever I want, you control me. Deidara's face turned red. He glared at Naruto in a rage, saliva flying everywhere. While talking, the underground worm, like a pangolin digging the ground, rapidly moved in the mud. Those small clay balls that fell on the ground were successfully buried in the mud by the worms, very well hidden. This is the greatest characteristic of this Earth Dragon Hidden Technique. It has no offensive ability, but it can in the shortest time bury Deidara's landmine grenades underground. Again, using clay to make explosives and squeeze it into the shape of a worm. Isn't this because the worm's body type is good at digging? It is easy to take advantage of this female worm's characteristic to quickly bury the grenade. If one could squeeze a handsome guy out and personally carry out the work of burying grenades, who wouldn't want to? Didn't think that because of such a small thing, he would still be caught by Naruto and released. Deidara really got angrier the more he thought about it. Hey, bastard, let's see how I can defeat you. Deidara pointed at Naruto and shouted. Naruto looked up at Deidara, but did not reply. At this time, the battle situation is still urgent. Naruto's first goal was still to first take care of Sasori. As for that big groove inside Kakuzu, Naruto just discovered him sneaking away. However, Naruto also discovered at the same time that Hinata and Karen, along with a group of people, appeared 100 meters away from the square. Also not afraid of Kakuzu's body destruction, can still turn up what kind of bubbles. But Naruto himself still had no way to get close to Sasori. At this time, Deidara arranged so many landmines and grenades above, it seems that this battle is getting harder and harder to fight. That's good, then I'm not much worse off. So I'll use all my strength to take care of you too. Naruto glanced at Deidara and Sasori and said in a low voice. What? Sasori and Deidara simultaneously showed looks of horror on their faces. After fighting for so long, he had used up all his tricks, almost all his tricks, but he still couldn't hold back the nine-tailed Jinchuriki. But now the nine-tails Jinchuriki said, should I use all my power? How many more tricks does he have left unseen? Naruto also had no thoughts and went to chat and scare them. 2 hands crossed standing in front of the body. Forehead large blue veins constantly raised. 8 gates Dunjia, the 7th Jin gate. Open. Boom! A wave of blue steam shot out from Naruto's body. A fierce wave of air spread out with Naruto as the center. Immediately, a gale blew above the square, carrying sand and dust, making it impossible for people to open their eyes. There are still several tall buildings left on both sides of the square, which were also bombed to the point of being irreparably damaged by this battle. At this moment, this gust of wind swept away and rumbled towards a collapsed surface. 700 meters outside, the roof of the building above. Hinata brought along 100 elite ninja, all frowning, ready to welcome the enemy. The bald squad of 10 people was the only one in the group who held a telescope. Telescopes are patrol equipment, so they can more clearly observe the battle situation in the square ahead. Perhaps at this moment, because of the howling wind above the square, their telescopes could only see large patches of dust. Temporarily lost vision, basically couldn't see Naruto and the 2 enemies. Why is it like this, suddenly such a big storm? Didn't you see just now? That kind of sky-high blue steam. It must be Lord Naruto using his ultimate move, 8 gates release, to create a hurricane. I can see that hurricane, just now it really blew down both buildings. Lord Naruto's move contains a terrifying power. It even blew down the buildings. The ninja group lost sight of their target and immediately began to discuss loudly. The tense mood was broken a bit. This group of people pretended to be onlookers. In their eyes, Lord Naruto is omnipotent. The building that was blown away and almost collapsed was blamed on Naruto for opening the 8 gates. Hinata? How is it? Karen asked, pulling Hinata's arm. At this moment, only Hinata with Byakugan clairvoyance could see the situation on the other side. Hinata nodded. It's Naruto-kun. He opened the 7th gate of 8 gates. It seems the enemy is really strong. Karen was a little shocked and immediately asked nervously, "Didn't I hear Naruto say last time that opening the 7th gate of the 8 gates will let his body reach a super overload state?" Yes, that is indeed the situation, but we can only hope that Naruto-kun can take action and defeat them in one fell swoop. Hinata nodded and said, "Opening the 8 gates armor." The airwave stopped, and the hurricane also stopped. When their vision recovered a bit, Sasori and Deidara could both clearly see that a pit had appeared under Naruto's feet. This pit was not created by Naruto on purpose, but was thrown out by that powerful wave of air just as he opened the 8 gates release. And at this moment, Naruto had his hands clasped together, his knees slightly bent, showing a strange posture. "Sasori, this is the strongest move I can use in my body technique right now. If you can resist, I won't even consider sparing your life." Sasori Zhonghe's face was also like a puppet, and he couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth. "What the hell are you pretending to be here, B? I fucking thought you wanted to say, I can hold on. You should consider keeping my life. Work half a day, you don't have to say a word of nonsense." "Huh? No. Saving my life like this sounds very hypocritical. Come on, Uzumaki Naruto. No matter what moves you have, I can take them all. I am no longer the Sasori you defeated at Will before. Now I have Tiger Shelter." Naruto swung his fists together. A transparent air cannon condensed from his fists, flying straight towards Sasori. The air cannon in the air rapidly transformed, in the blink of an eye transforming into a giant transparent tiger about 20 meters long. "Roar!" The tiger roared angrily, opened its mouth wide, and suddenly pounced towards Sasori. "Baka, can you wait until I finish speaking? You little brat, you only know how to sneak attack. You can't handle it. You don't have the strength." Sasori immediately screamed in his heart. Even that expressionless puppet face also showed a trace of anger. This Uzumaki Naruto doesn't follow any cliches at all. After releasing the good words, attaching the B, he directly released the move. Basically, don't give others a chance to install B. Thoughts were racing, but facing that fierce tiger charging head-on, Sasori didn't have much time to criticize Naruto. He almost reacted beyond his body's instincts. The right half of the 3rd Kazekage's puppet arm swung up with all his might. Sathiat multi-layered wall? Ba. The originally floating black sand iron that had stopped beside Sasori instantly condensed into a thick sand wall in front of Sasori. But this is not over yet. Also not knowing whether or not Sasori had previously, in order to guard against Naruto, buried a large amount of black sand iron under the ground under his feet. As he waved his arm, the sand iron jumped out from the ground, rolling up like a tidal wave that reached the sky, rapidly condensing into 5 thick sand iron walls. Adding Sasori in front of the other person filled in, all about 6 thick sand iron walls. Boom, tilde. True Ho instantly arrived in front of the sand iron wall. A pair of tiger claws suddenly slapped forward. The iron and sand scattered, and the first wall was torn apart. Immediately after that, the second wall blocking the sand iron was broken by True Ho's head, and the sand iron fell to the ground with a loud bang. Third block broken. Wednesday block broken. Thursday block broken. But the possibility is that the sand iron density and thickness are too great to cause. Every time True Ho broke through the wall that was filled with transparent light, the light on his body would weaken a bit. By the time the 6th wall was built, the 20-meter-tall giant tiger's body had already shrunk by 2/3. Ah! Sasori looked up at the sand iron that was continuously being blown away in front of him. Coupled with the white light of the living tiger, it had finally filled the vicinity of the sand iron wall. He knew his strongest defense was about to be broken. With an angry roar, his right arm suddenly swung up, increasing the chakra flow and release. When chakra flows into the black sand iron wall in front of it through the control thread, the density of the sand iron is reinforced, and its defensive ability is once again increased by a level. The tiger's head violently hit the wall that finally filled it. Although the iron bars were scattered, it still caused a large hole in the wall. The white light from the tiger's head and body gradually dimmed, but in the end it still couldn't complete the kill on Sasori. This technique, Only a pervert can use this technique. Can it really be achieved at this level with just body technique? Sasori looked up at the tiger head that had penetrated the wall in front of him. His heart clenched into a ball. If it weren't for the fact that his body was a puppet body, his back would have been soaked in cold sweat by now. Just a little bit more, I would have died in the mouth of this fierce tiger. He had no doubt that if his puppet body was bitten by a fierce tiger, the heart that was hidden inside would be bitten until it burst into tears. Still not okay? At the moment the fierce tiger tore half of the sand iron wall, Naruto had already discovered the possibility of the living tiger failing. So, while Sasori was still trying to resist the living tiger, Naruto touched his stomach and sent a message to the Nine Tails. Kurama, it's time. Lend me your chakra. Sealing the space inside, Nine Tails leaned against the iron door and slowly opened its eyes. Maybe. Naruto, my chakra contains countless evil spirits. You must use it very carefully. It might make you lose your mind. The corner of Kyuubi's mouth twitched, revealing a trace of a human smile. Hey, thank you. Naruto nodded and smiled. Didn't think he would still be cared for by the Nine Tails. This stinky fox really is a bit interesting. Shut up. Don't thank me over and over again, saying such malicious words. I wanted to say it to you last time. I help you just because I don't want to be captured by those guys and absorbed into the Ten Tails' stomach. The Nine Tails opened its mouth wide and let out a furious roar. Yes, I know. Naruto responded silently. This is the right form. This is how the proud Nine Tails should look like. Obviously want to help, but prefer to be stubborn and refuse to admit it. How to say that? Mouth shy cannot be honest. Another side, standing at the last wall filled with sand iron behind. Sasori watched as the tiger's light completely dissipated and retreated. Only then did he let out a long sigh of relief. Finally, everything was safe and sound, but without waiting for Sasori to react. A dark red hand quickly followed the crack in the middle of the iron wall and probed through. More precisely, this was also a dark red claw, probing through and then grabbing Sasori's cheeks. What happened? Sasori was immediately confused, but because his vision was blocked by this claw, he didn't know clearly what happened. Just instinctively raised his left arm. After a while the mechanical axis rotated back. A short knife protruded from inside his forearm, slashing towards the thing that was grabbing his face. Crackle. A loud sound of broken wood was heard. Before the dagger swung down, the dark red claws used force to grab, and Sasori's wooden puppet face was completely crushed. The front half of the skull border was destroyed. This puppet's body lost all senses, lost weight, and fell down. Pedal, pedal, pedal. A moment of hurried footsteps came. Borrowing the Nine Tails chakra, Naruto now opened the tailed beast cloak form. The whole body was covered by dark red chakra, basically unable to see the previous appearance. On the top of the head grow two erect ears for tails swinging at the tail. And Naruto's running posture was also like a fox, all four limbs touching the ground and galloping. Retired. Tailed beast cloak state Naruto transformed into an afterimage, jumped high, crossed the central minefield, and fell straight towards Sasori. You don't have any chance of winning. Go die. Naruto suddenly shouted, landed on Sasori's puppet body, and stepped on Sasori's 2 feet. The fists were raised high, and a powerful hammer was struck down. Boom, boom. The ground shook violently. With a loud bang, Sasori was hit by 2 fists, causing the puppet's body components to shatter. The whole ground was smashed into a spider web-shaped big hole. Naruto's eyes continuously moved, searching for Sasori's heart-shaped tube. Carefully looking down, only then did he see the round tube heart, which had been smashed into a meat pie by himself. A trace of blood splattered on the mud. It seems that Sasori is completely dead. Naruto stood up, turned his head to look at Deidara in the sky, and said in a low voice, Deidara, next is you. You guys don't expect to escape today. Even Sasori-sama is dead? Deidara suddenly moved his left electronic eye, adjusted the focus, and saw the situation below clearly. Sasori's heart was crushed flat, but it couldn't escape his gaze. The 4 of them came swaggeringly, vowing to capture the 9-tailed Jinchuriki. Maybe not now. Haiden was decapitated. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Kakuzu was beaten and fled, completely unaware of the situation. Even Sasori was beaten to death on the spot. Deidara felt a little discouraged in his heart. As long as he doesn't get entangled with Naruto, Just by taking advantage of the airspace, he still has a great chance of escaping. Really just heard Naruto these arrogant words, that kind of tone that doesn't put him in the eyes at all. There was also that kind of contempt and indifference when those eyes stared at him earlier. Deidara gritted his teeth, still unable to hold back, wanting to use his own art to prove his strength. Disgusting. I can't possibly run away like a coward. Silently muttering a sentence, Deidara immediately joined his palms together to form a seal, and shouted towards Naruto, "Just right. It's good that there aren't many of them. Avoid getting in the way and affecting me." Ah! While speaking, Deidara under the C2 flying dragon's feet. His body moved from his abdomen. Immediately continuously from his mouth, sprayed out 3 1-meter-long clay birds. The first bird flew at an extremely fast speed, shooting straight down towards Naruto. The other 2 then flew to the 2 sides, then turned around slightly, then launched attacks from the left and right towards Naruto, almost in the blink of an eye. The first flying bird had arrived less than 2 meters in front of Naruto. Screech! Deidara shouted loudly. The bird exploded. As a blazing fire erupted, a heat wave swept away in all directions. A large hole was dug out of the ground, and heat waves rushed to the surrounding bricks and rolled outwards. The brick touched a landmine grenade that had already been buried in the ground, immediately triggering a chain reaction, with rumbling explosions ringing out one after another. But Deidara's other big worm, his grenade-burying technique, is a bit special. Distance, just in time will not be above a bomb's aftershock touch trigger explosion area. Therefore, the landmine grenades were still there, and the space Naruto was in was still not large. Using Hiraishin to escape, Deidara's eyes narrowed. He noticed that Naruto was not injured by the explosion, but appeared very suddenly in the position where he had just been fighting with Sasori. There were no grenades in such an area. So Naruto dared to use Hiraishin to return to his original location with peace of mind. Just right. This time you didn't escape space. Deidara controlled the other 2 clay birds to fly. One quickly turned and rushed towards Naruto. These 2 flying birds attacked. The distance between one flying bird's explosion was actually only a short distance of less than 3 seconds. It was Naruto whose feet had just fallen to the ground. Looking at the 2 big clay birds flying straight towards him, Naruto also took the initiative to start counterattacking. Another hand suddenly lifted up from behind. The dark red fox claws extended out. A bar at the ruins inside, holding up a thick block of heavy stone wall. Waving his hand, he immediately struck the large clay bird flying towards him. The big bird flapped its wings, wanting to lean to avoid it. But the fox's claws swung with great force. Immediately after that, the stone wall that was thrown out also emitted a loud bang in the air, and a small bang hit the clay bird's body. Boom, boom. The bird's wings were broken, and it lost its ability to fly. It tilted its body and fell down, falling into Rai area, triggering a wave of grenade explosions. Another clay bird followed closely behind, still charging towards Naruto. Naruto was also on guard, imitating the action, and grabbed another large rock, throwing it towards the flying clay bird. This time the flying bird was hit head-on. The clay head was smashed into the body. The flying boat that had been flying forward suddenly stopped, but was instead pushed back by the force of the large rock, until the wall behind 8 meters was smashed and fell into the building. There was no movement. Cut. Your grenade is just a small piece of chicken. Completely useless to me. Naruto raised his head and looked mockingly at Deidara, seizing the opportunity. He raised that fox claw and pointed a middle finger at Deidara. The contempt in his words was extremely thick, angering Deidara to the point where his eyes suddenly popped out, almost causing him to explode. You bastard! Deidara's whole body was trembling. He took out a piece of clay from his clay ninja bag, stuffed it into his mouth, and started chewing and swallowing. Because looking through the original relationship, Deidara raised his butt. Naruto immediately knew what he wanted to pull. Ah no, it can't be that vulgar. It must be Deidara's next move. Naruto had already predicted it. Swallowing clay by oneself. Simply 3 kinds of methods. One type is to swallow the clay and self-destruct. But this type of self-destruct has limited power and cannot hurt Naruto at all. The explosive power can reach up to 1 kilometer at most, which is considered a lot, so he is not able to use it. The second type was something he had used before, the earth-sealing clone balloon, used to defend against close-range enemies. The effect was quite good. But because it was a powerful nano grenade, and the earth-sealing clone's balloon's volume wasn't huge enough, the explosive power wasn't enough. The only thing left is the third type, Deidara's most proud work, and it was also the method he had wanted to research to deal with Itachi Uchiha. See, 4 old man. While thinking, Naruto's hand movements were not idle. Once again waved out a pair of fox claws from one side of the pile of ruins inside, took out a large iron door plate. Towards the ground in front suddenly flew out. See. The iron door on the ground slid forward in a circle, leaving a mark about 3 or 4 meters wide on the mud on the ground. Boom boom tilde 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 boom boom tilde tilde tilde. Buried underground, the grenades were opened by the iron door and started to explode one after another. Black smoke billowed out and mud flew everywhere. Because the iron door was thrown out with great force, all the people who were chasing after it before the landmine exploded had already slid down an area. Even though the explosive fire wave was extremely powerful, it still could not stop the iron door from advancing. Straight slide out a long end of several dozen meters can make the exit area. Retired, Naruto passed through the black smoke explosion and charged straight forward. Even though we are moving forward in such a hurry, it is inevitable that we will encounter explosive aftershocks. But with Naruto's current body covered in the tailed beast coat, there was no need to take this small wound to heart. In the air, Deidara swallowed and completed the explosion of clay mixed with chakra in his mouth. At this moment, it was opening its mouth wide, facing downwards, making a vomiting gesture, spitting out a large piece of white clay. The white clay, like mud, after falling to the ground, rapidly began to condense into a pair of huge feet. Next are the knees, thighs, abdomen, upper body, and skull. A 20-meter-tall Deidara earth giant stood on the ground, like a miniature mountain peak. The square more than a few hundred meters outside, a 6-story-tall building roof. Hyuga, Hinata, and the other 100 or so ninjas were still waiting far away for a chance to rescue them, afraid that something unexpected would happen to Naruto. Karen put down the telescope that the patrol squad member had obtained there, tilted her head to the side, and looked at Hinata with a solemn expression, saying, "Hinata, what happened? Is that Naruto entering tailed beast transformation? How did he suddenly become like this?" Karen was previously at Orochimaru's base, and through Orochimaru's study, she had seen some news related to the tailed beasts. In the literature related to Jinchuriki tailed beast transformation, there are also a few records. It is recorded above that after Jinchuriki enters tailed beast formation, they basically lose their minds and become killing machines. Hinata frowned, worry written all over her face. This was the first time she saw Naruto in this state, and she had no idea about tailed beast transformation. "Karen, I also don't know much about the tailed beast transformation. Naruto-kun didn't mention it to me. Will it be dangerous?" Karen was stunned, originally wanting to say that she knew something about the tailed beast transformation. Open mouth wide, but still could not get the words out. Because Karen knew very well that even if Naruto really wanted to transform into the Nine Tails with his group strength, there was no way to stop him. It seems that this support operation was a complete failure, and has turned into a distant observation operation. Nothing. Tailed beast transformation. It must be Naruto's ability has further enhanced, haha. Karen lifted her glasses, revealing a trace of an awkward smile. Looking at her like this, Hinata's face showed doubt. After living together for so many years, Tenten and Hinata had already known what kind of habits everyone had. Every time Karen lies, she stutters a little, and also likes to lift her glasses to hide her guilt. "Big brother, look quickly. What is that thing?" Without waiting for Hinata to continue questioning, the bald leader, standing on the rooftop of the suburbs, loudly shouted a reminder. Basically, there is no need for the bald team leader to remind. Among these people, except for Hinata and Karen who were chatting, they temporarily did not pay attention to the battlefield outside. The rest of the people all looked up there. No one thought this scale of battle would reach this level. First is Naruto, the 10-meter-tall giant Susanoo. This time good, came a bigger guy really like a small mountain. That earth-sealing clone giant. Every time it moves forward a step, the ground will shake. Also don't know if it's an illusion or not. Standing on the roof, there are quite a few ninja. Even have the feeling that when standing under the foot of the tall building, all have happened a little shaking. Naruto-kun, do your best. Just blame me for being too weak right now. I can't help you at all. Hinata hoot prayed, her hands tightly clenched together, because she was so nervous, her palms were full of sweat. Just now, the scene where Sasori was beaten to death, Hinata, through her Byakugan, also saw it clearly. Didn't think that person would be so formidable in the end. Hinata, don't worry. Naruto is absolutely fine. Karen saw that Hinata's emotions were a bit off, raised her hand, and held Hinata's hand tightly, speaking words of comfort. That's right, Miss Hinata. Lord Naruto will absolutely have no problems. We all believe in this. That's right. Lord Naruto is invincible. He is our leader. The ninja group also spoke up one after another. But all of them were nervously swallowing their saliva, as if they were saying these words to themselves. On the battlefield street, more than 20 meters tall Jia Lao La giant was moving forward slowly with footwork. Those huge legs, each step will also leave a huge footprint deep hole on the ground. Deidara looked at one of his most proud artworks and nodded with satisfaction. Immediately, he turned towards the square below where black smoke exploded, angrily shouting, "What? Now you still dare to say my grenade is useless, eh?" In the black smoke, no one responded. The distance between C4 Jia Lao Lane was about 10 meters away, but there was a white light shining. The light gradually magnifying. As the black smoke dispersed a bit, the white light that came from it finally vaguely appeared under Deidara's vision. That is a fox body covered in dark red chakra. The four-headed fox tail has a slight sway at the end. The fox's skull raised high. Its mouth opened. A small blue sphere gathered at the mouth, rapidly condensing and growing larger. This is a tailed beast attack. Deidara's face was filled with horror. If the distance was so close, and Naruto wanted to launch a tailed beast attack at him, he would have no way to dodge. Even in the air, it was obvious that the tailed beast had hit it. Damn it! Deidara cursed and quickly controlled the flying dragon, spreading its wings and retreating towards the rear. Although the flying dragon's body was too huge, its flying speed could not catch up with the similar clay flying bird. But at this time, there was no time to complete the making of the clay flying bird. Finally, the deep blue sphere at the fox's mouth had condensed into a soccer ball the size of a soccer ball. As the fox suddenly blew out a breath forward, a large oval-shaped explosive impact wave erupted forward. Boom, boom, tilde, 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 tilde. A loud explosion rang out. This time, the ninjas on top of the building behind them did not feel any shaking at the foot of the building. But it was a real earthquake. The whole building was shaking left and right. A 20-meter-tall giant walking forward. Its entire body was completely turned into dust by the impact wave of the explosion. A huge clay skull, along with a giant clay lower body, instantly lost balance and support, falling heavily to the ground. At the same time, there were also small nano-grenade-shaped parts, blown away by the hurricane wind. Although these grenades, Deidara will still be able to detonate, but to Naruto there is no threat. The main body part of the grenade was blown to pieces by the impact wave of the explosion. The tailed beast's explosive impact wave struck towards the place, which was Deidara's sky. It's just that because the 20-meter-tall giant was too huge, it was hit. In the air, Deidara stood on the back of the flying dragon, turning his head to look at the explosive impact waves coming towards him from behind, scaring him to the point his pupils kept dilating. He only hated that he didn't pinch Fai Long's wings more before, so he could fly faster. Seeing that he was being affected, Deidara resolutely gave up controlling the flying dragon. He jumped down and straight down. Crackle! The 5 to 6 meter long clay giant dragon was torn apart by the impact waves of the explosion and fell straight down. But Deidara, because he escaped in time, although his back was blown away and a large amount of flesh was lost, he still barely managed to protect his life in the end. Naruto, quickly leave the tailed beast transformation state. The enemy has been defeated. If you continue, your body will not be able to handle it. Sealing the space inside, the Nine Tails raised its head, using its large eyes to look over the darkness above its head, calling out to Naruto. "Ah, thank you, Kurama." Naruto gritted his teeth and agreed, his voice sounding a bit weak. Just like the Nine Tails said, the first time using the Nine Tails' type of chakra, that overwhelming burning feeling of evil energy made every part of Naruto's body feel extreme pain. Boom, boom, tilde, tilde, tilde. The Nine Tails chakra cloak slowly retreated, first revealing Naruto's head, then his body. The red chakra all flowed into the abdomen, returning to the space seal and disappearing. But at this moment, Naruto's skin all over his body, there was not a single good spot. The entire face, neck, hands, back of hands, every place that could be seen with the naked eye, was burned until it was red. I really didn't expect that after using your ability, I would end up like this. It hurts so much. Naruto raised his hand to look at his hand, unable to help but let out a painful groan. Ninetales curled his lips in disdain. Of course. Do you think this old man's strength is so useful? However, this is only your first time using the tailed beast cloak form. If you use it often in the future, your body will gradually adapt to this power. As he spoke, the Ninetales seemed to suddenly remember something. Its lying body suddenly stood up, facing the iron door outside where Naruto stood, and roared loudly. There is one more thing. I told you before. Naruto, don't keep thanking me over and over again and saying this kind of disgusting words. I don't like you humans' lies. Ninetales' voice was loud and deafening. Naruto was blown by his breath until he was unable to open his eyes. He quickly raised his hand to cover his face, smiling embarrassedly. I know. You will always be so arrogant. I'm not saying thank you to you in vain. I am sincerely expressing my gratitude to you. Humph. Ninetales snorted softly, lying down, his face indifferent as he closed his eyes. Thinking of the Ninetales' words just now, Naruto quickly asked, That's right, Kurama. Using it many times, can you adapt to this power? What this means is, when I use the chakra cloak state in the future, will I still need to experience this kind of burning pain many times? This kind of burning pain is really too hard to accept. Unless there is a huge necessity in the future, Naruto has no intention of frequently using this chakra cloak state. Anyway, Naruto has many tricks up his sleeve. There's no need to endure the pain and force his body to use the chakra cloak state. The Ninetales' eyes were half open and half closed, lazily saying, Then what do you think? There can still be that layer of meaning. We tailed beasts do not have the complicated thoughts of you humans. What we talk about is just the meaning on the surface. Naruto glared at the Ninetales with some disgust, turned his face away, and said to himself, Why do you have such a big prejudice against humans? And I didn't tell you to panic. Ninetales means that humans will eventually lie, one lie in front of others and another lie behind others. Thinking back carefully, Naruto and the Ninetales actually didn't have many contacts. Moreover, being able to quickly and smoothly communicate with him, unlike the original work going through so many difficulties and hardships, is still very good. Must use magic to convince this arrogant guy like Ninetales that is afraid it will be very difficult. Kurama, goodbye. I still have to go deal with that guy outside. Seeing that there was nothing important, Naruto waved his hand, said goodbye to the Ninetales, and retreated out of the sealed spiritual space. Ninetales half opened its eyes, looking at Naruto, who turned into light and dissipated in the darkness, unable to help but trace a smile on the corner of its mouth. The Ninetales' ears were glowing. Just now Naruto whispered something, but it heard it. It said humans are liars, mainly because the people it had encountered before didn't have any good looks on their faces. The first one was Madara Uchiha, who arrogantly treated the Ninetales as a pet, saying it was just an intelligent underground beast, and forcefully used the Sharingan to control it, using it as a summoning beast. The second was Hashirama Senju, who feared the Ninetales' powerful destructive power, fearing that it would cause too much damage to the village and the ninja world. So he forcibly sealed it within Mito Uzumaki's body. The third and the fourth. It is the Jinchuriki Mito Uzumaki and Uzumaki Kushina. Both of them considered the Ninetales as an evil creature, although by chance because of some reason at the sealed spiritual space inside the encounter. But Mito Uzumaki and Kushina also never gave the Ninetales a good look. This is the reason why the Ninetales has come into contact with most humans, and also the reason why the Ninetales dislikes humans so much. Perhaps not just the Ninetales. All tailed beasts are like the Ninetales, having similar experiences. After the Six Paths Sage left his nine-tailed beasts, he no longer received the sincere treatment of humans. But from Naruto's body, the Ninetales felt something special. Naruto did not say anything mean to it, but called out its name for the first time. Although he had come into contact with it several times after that, Naruto had always been relatively gentle with it, only occasionally joking around a bit. Even though Naruto has that pair of terrifying eyes, he can very strongly control it. Naruto really didn't do that. If he wanted to borrow chakra, he still had to negotiate with it. Also because of these things, the Ninetales gradually let down all its guard against Naruto. Maybe that Naruto guy is really the person that the old man of six paths was talking about. Humph! Ninetales grinned and closed his eyes again. Sealed space and outside the speed of time passing is different. Naruto and the Ninetales talked for a long time, but outside it was just the past in the blink of an eye. After leaving the Ninetales space, Naruto still felt that kind of burning pain all over his body. But Naruto didn't dare to stop just like that, because Deidara wasn't dead yet. This type of guy is extremely dangerous. It's hard to guarantee that he won't do anything that will harm the villagers. Trying to suppress the pain, Naruto bent his knees and jumped up and down, climbing up the wall in front of the castle. In order to guard against landmines and grenades on the ground, Naruto leaned against the wall and moved forward. At this time, he didn't have much energy to deal with the grenades. The long battle, coupled with the injuries brought by the Ninetales transformation, had severely strained Naruto's body. At the high-rise building, he continuously jumped forward. About 5 minutes later, Naruto arrived at the area where Deidara had just fallen. This is a large soccer field, specially used for children in the village to play soccer. Deidara at this moment was leaning on the railing of the bridge next to the door, the corner of his lips curled up in a bloodthirsty expression, his face full of pain. Falling from a high place, his entire right thigh was severely cracked and deformed. There was also a large area of wound on the back. The flesh was torn open, and one could vaguely see white bones. This part was so painful that Deidara almost fell into a coma. But he still tried to hold back the pain, not letting himself fall down. Just because he knew Naruto would definitely arrive soon, he must quickly think of a way to deal with it.